And now the authentic self wants to emerge, but it can only emerge if we break the fortress. And so instead of keeping attracting narcissists that keep them in the fortress, now we need to open the fortress.
Welcome back to the Love Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Charlene Byars. I am thrilled to welcome my next guest to the show today. Quentin DeCamp is a relationship coach, mentor, somatic therapist, and breathwork facilitator. He is a dedicated, passionate writer, content creator who uses the power of language, breath, and energy to create a safe, transformational space, helping people dissolve their wounded ego, limitations, suppressed emotions, and retraining narratives. Quentin guides individuals and couples to remove what's in the way of them feeling attuned to their selves, so you can build a lasting, connected, conscious romantic relationship with their partner. I had such a deep and heartfelt conversation with Quentin about our ego and attachment styles in our childhood, and how that quietly is guiding us, and how we show up in connection in the matters of the heart. Get ready for this powerful conversation. And remember, stick around for the tip of the week at the end of the show. Welcome to Love Stories, a relationship podcast for successful women, where we talk about love, dating, relationships, and how great love stories are made. I'm Charlene Byars, and I'm so excited to share all the things that you can apply to create a beautiful love story of your own. Cheers to great love. Well, hello, Quentin. Yay!
Hello.
I finally have you here. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I know that you're like literally on the other side of the world from me. It is my afternoon, and I think it's your morning. You are, where exactly are you at?
Yeah, I'm living in Sydney at the moment.
So you're in Sydney,
Australia.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm here in Arizona.
Yeah. It's amazing.
How cool is that? Like, how cool is that we can make this happen today? So first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for getting up and, having this conversation that we're about to have.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So I know that, our audience just, kind of heard your professional bio and, what you do. And it's really amazing in how you helping people and all the people that you're actually helping. And truly, what great work you're doing. And I also was going to ask you this, and it was something that I wanted to start with. I know that you wrote a book, and the title of your book really caught my eye. And I wanted to just, briefly, let's start there. First, I'd like for you to tell everyone what the title of the book is and how that came about.
Yeah. So the title of the book is You Have Never Been in a Relationship. And so I wanted to use that title because when I was still studying, especially the wounded ego and relationship, and I was actually in therapy with one of my mentors, and he started the session with this. After me exposing what I was going through, he told me, well, you've never been in a relationship. And I was answering him like, how come? Yes, I've been in a relationship. I'm coming because I have relationship issues. And he was like, no, you've never been in a relationship because you have never been in a relationship with yourself. You've been in a relationship with all the trauma and the constraint of your past that have been attracted people that are reflecting the trauma back to you so you can heal. So you've never been in a relationship, and for people who are listening to us, like, it's probably the reality for so many, because I will use this famous quote of Carl Jung that say, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will control your life and you will call it fate. I will use that quote and just changing a little bit and say, until you make the subconscious, which is a wounded ego or the fortress around the wounded ego, until you make the subconscious conscious, it will control your life and you will keep saying, why me? Why this happened to me? Why do I keep attracting the same type of partner or the same type of people into my life? And the answer is, it's because you are in a relationship with the construct that are attracting these people into your life, so you can be triggered and be hurt, which is revealing the hurt that is in the past that is driving your life. So that's kind of why I use the title for the book, because it's always when I say that to people, they're always like, what do you mean? So it's a great entry from not only the book, but also from therapy sessions as well. Because it can trigger a little bit. So
no, but I think sometimes that's exactly, if someone's in that situation, just like you said with the book, and they're not really understanding what has been going on with them, the curiosity, even if it's triggering, is actually great because it kind of puts them in a different state. It's like, where is this coming from? Maybe I've never been in a relationship, because I can only imagine, like you just said, when you first heard that yourself, it was something that, took you back. So that is a very powerful title. And I really understand now why you picked it. Well, let me ask you this. Take me back for a moment here, okay? Because like I said, I know what you're doing as your profession, and it is just incredible. But I want to know a little bit about you. Where did you grow up? And did you grow up with a mom and a dad, or did you have siblings? What was life for you, in general, when you were a little boy?
Yeah, so I grew up in a small French island called New Caledonia, which is in the Pacific. So you will have Australia over there, New Zealand here, and New Caledonia will be there 2.5 hours from Australia. So I grew up here, no siblings, I had both of my parents. But it's interesting because I had the two biggest archetype of what can cause trauma for a child. So I have what I call the suffocating kind of devouring mother versus the neglectful absent father. So my father was present, but not really present, constantly working, very anxious, very angry. My mother was on the opposite side, very submissive, very in depression. And oftentimes, and I want people to understand, I'm saying that construct. So a construct is called devouring mother, because oftentimes mothers that have a lot of trauma are more likely to be the one that wants to devour the sense of self of the child, because they are asking the child to meet the needs that were not met from their own father. So that's why it's called a devouring mother. Okay. They can be, because of the invasion of polarities at the moment, we see more feminine women or feminine men or very sensitive men versus more masculine women. There is more and more out there now devouring father that are asking the child to take care of them, which is highly abusive, but more likely it's devouring mother versus neglectful father.
Okay.
So I had both. On top of that, I grew up in an environment where in appearance was really good, no issues, but it was very chaotic, a lot of conflict, and I was an only child. So I received all of that. And there were a massive contrast between my parents and my aunt and my grandmother that I'm very close to. So it was very chaotic, very conflictual. There were not a lot of joy and peace and all of that with my parents. And there were massive contrasts with my grandmother and my aunt, which were more like kind of what we could label the toxic positive, the total opposite. So very like, my grandmother was a CEO of a company, earned a lot of money. So it was like living in a nightmare kind of with my parents and at school versus living in a complete fantasy with my grandmother, where she could access a lot of benefits with a lot of, for example, travel and 5-star hotels and all of that. So for a child living in this completely nightmare versus fantasy, oftentimes is going to create what we call a disorganized attachment style. Because disorganized attachment style is often mistaken with people who have borderline or bipolar personality disorder. But it's the same thing that happens. There is a split in the psyche because the child is in an environment where there is two pole opposite and he doesn't know where to go. Okay. And then what he see and absorb externally is going to become what he is internally. So avoidant versus anxious, which create disorganized when we have both. I using disorganized because a lot of people can refer to it. Okay. I'm actually in my session trying to diffuse any label that people have attached to. Okay. Because what I've realized is that we have that tendency to want to add label to understand what we are and what we are not.
Yes.
The issue is that the more we attach, like if we have an ego that is highly playing the victim, it will take this label and make it a truth and be like, yes, I have an anxious attachment style I cannot really change. Versus the person that is going to be like more like growth, solution focused mindset. I want to break free. I'm going to take the anxious attachment as saying like, this is not going to define me. I'm going to break free from the prison, creating the anxious attachment. And so there's two types of mentality here. And I grew up with that mix. So at the beginning of my own healing, it was like all this label to kind of become the victim of my own healing or what I thought was healing. But yes, there's probably a lot there. That was most of my childhood woes. So home was not safe. School was not safe because I was labeled very different. I could see things that people couldn't. I had questions that people didn't dare to ask at a very young age. So I started to be repressed for it. I was very introvert. So I was the perfect little boy to be bullied at school. So home was not safe. School was not safe. So it became not safe to be me. So how can I feel safe within myself if the entire environment around me is unsafe?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
No, that really answered my question. And I want to ask you this, like, for the listeners that are listening right now, and I want, if you can give them a little bit of background on attachment styles and how I actually really appreciate what you said. And I never heard of it in the sense of like, if someone, the attachment styles are there to give us an understanding. And I've always felt, also, that there are people that take that and just label themselves as if that's it. That's just, I'm avoidant and I'm always going to be avoidant. And that's just what it is. And I know as a coach myself, that's not necessarily true. So let's talk about the attachment styles and why they can be important, but also in the sense of what you just said. It's not something that you have to, label yourself for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. So yeah, in terms of attachment style, it's interesting because for people that are listening, there is anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, disorganized attachment. Some people call it also fearful avoidance. And then you have secure attachment. So any attachment style, what I've discovered is like, again, attachment style is, I want people to see that as the tip of the iceberg. So it's all around behavior level. And oftentimes my work has been to go and dive under what is an attachment style. So an attachment style is going to be a bundle of subconscious prisons, emotional negative attachment, and shadow needs that have been created from either a lot of trauma in the past, things that were happening too fast, too soon for the child, or things that the child have started to tell themselves based on their unbalanced perspective, because a child, especially between 0 to 3, 4, 5, they are all feelings. They haven't developed the logic to comprehend what's happening. So if, for example, a child feels bad, they automatically going to believe they are bad because they cannot delineate between identity and emotions and feelings. So we are going to develop these attachment as a result to what was lacking as a child or what was overly giving. And I mean, giving is the hurt. So if you have, for example, what I was telling about the neglectful father, which is avoidant, you are more likely to develop an anxious attachment. If you have the suffocating parents that is trying to control you because they are anxious and they want you to alleviate their fear and their concern, you are more likely to develop the avoidant attachment. So I like to say things a bit differently than most. So people who have anxious attachment are scared to lose love because they believe that the person outside of them that their partner is the source of the love they feel, because they are disconnected from their own sense of love and they think it is to be found outside. And society is playing a big role in that. They are making it so easy for us to be caught in that belief that love is to be found outside of us. No, like when we have an anxious attachment and we get preoccupied with other people instead of ourselves, it just reveals the disconnection we have with our own sense of love. Love is never to be found outside. It's like it's a process of remembrance. It's to be reconnected within. So
Wow.
avoidant attachment is going to be more, the avoidant attacher is going to be scared to leave love, because oftentimes the connection with a caregiver that they thought was love was associated with a lot of judgment, criticism, hurt. So they are not scared of love, so to speak, or they are not afraid of intimacy. Like, I love when people say I'm scared of intimacy. It's like, you're not scared of intimacy in itself. You're scared of what happened if you build a connection with someone, which is a subtle difference, but very important.
Okay.
So, I don't know if you want to speak more about attachment style.
That was a really good overview of, attachment styles and understanding how that actually starts, like you said, at a young age.
Yeah.
When, I was looking back, I know what you're doing now. And, probably back then when you're a boy, you would seriously never consider you would be doing this. But when you were young and you were growing up and you were going through adolescence, and again, as a child, that's your norm. Your environment is your norm. You're just going about doing what you're doing because you don't know anything else, right? You don't know anything else. But how did that actually, and this is why I think it's important that we talked about attachment styles, how people can see how this plays, when you go further moving on. How did that start showing up for you when it came to the matters of the heart? Were you a young man that was, so shy that you kind of steered away? Or were you, putting yourself out there when it came to the matters of the heart? What was happening to you?
Yeah, so basically, my disorganized attachment style started to really show up at a very young age. I started to have relationship very early. I was 14. And so disorganized attachment style with the main anxious tendencies. So it will come under the form of, like, with clinginess, demand, control. I will constantly push partners away to kind of re-experience the despair of feeling abandoned, but then the safety of the partner coming back. And this is what we get addicted to. We get addicted to the fear and the despair that release chemical in the body when people leave or are avoidant, or we push them away through protesting behavior, or we push ourselves away through people-pleasing behavior, versus the chemical that are released, which is oxytocin and all of that, when they come back. But like, it was just a reflection of my mom leaving me when she was having conflict with my father. And that would create a lot of spike of cortisol in my system, a lot of fear of loss, what people call fear of abandonment. And then when my mother would come back, I would feel reassured, and then I would get addicted to that mix of chemical. And so someone like me who had a deep, very anxious attachment that I'm still recovering from to this day, has a deep fear of loss, and I will look out there and crave someone who can make me feel safe and alleviate this internal fear and suffering without me feeling safe with myself. So this is why it become an addiction, because with an anxious attachment like that, there is a demand for reassurance, an unconscious or conscious addiction to the fear of loss, and a subconscious needs, and this is where we go and layer deeper. I will have a subconscious need of the ego to prove that I'm going to be abandoned no matter what. And that would be driven from the subconscious prison, which say, I'm not wanted. And so I'm not wanted will create the belief that I'm, no matter what, no matter who I am with, I'm always going to be left. At some point, someone is going to leave me. But the problem with that, and I really want people to get that, it's because I was scared of losing someone. I would start to protest and having controlling behavior because my ego would saying to the other person, prove to me that you love me. Prove to me that you love me. But because I was pushing them away, I was actually trying to prove that I'm not lovable, that people can leave me. And therefore, cling and control, I would be like, no, please don't leave me. But the more I was doing that, the more I was creating a fulfilling prophecy. So I would actually creating the very thing that I was afraid to happen, which is pushing someone away.
Oh, wow. That is so powerful. And let me tell you why that's so powerful is because people don't often understand Oh, I'm so happy you're talking about this. People don't often understand why they, break up with, certain things in their relationship, certain patterns they have in relationships, how they take it from one person to another and they're totally confused. They're like, but this is a totally different person. Why am I still having the same type of issues? It's because they haven't been able to understand it, like you said, in a subconscious way, like the core of what has been happening and how our bodies, even though, like you said, it's not necessarily a healthy thing, but how our bodies are actually addicted
Yeah,
to that. Talk about that. How if you are, that addiction in that feeling of like, even though it doesn't feel good, it does feel good. It's interesting. Talk about that.
absolutely. So I'm gonna deliver how we get addicted to. Again, we get addicted to this program. We think we are
Okay.
addicted to the person. That's the projection of the ego. The ego has two ways of surviving: projection and denial. So we project, we say, this is not mine, this is you to deal with. So I'm projecting. When I blame, I project, or I deny my responsibility. It's your fault, it's not mine. So, and then I will say why also people that are listening, oftentimes women are more likely to have the anxious attachment. Men are more likely to have the avoidant. So this is why all women will attract the opposite to reveal this wound. So we are going to become addicted to this program and to this prison because we are addicted to the chemical that are released when we experience the emotion that fuel the programs. And when this program liberate a lot of thoughts. So the body starts to release this chemical by itself. And this is why sometimes we feel rush of emotion out of nowhere, and we have rush of thoughts out of nowhere because it's automated now. We become addicted to the adrenaline, the dopamine, the cortisol, the norepinephrine. So if we grow up in an environment where there is a lot of perceived threat or real threat around us, so perceived threat could be my mom leaving me, I feel abandoned. Active threat would be my dad coming back and slapping me in the face because I did something wrong. Or they label wrong. So when there is a lot of perceived threat or real threat, our brain sees the image, our nervous system tense and generate a response. It goes to the prefrontal of our brain here, through the neocortex, goes down into the limbic part of the brain, down the spine. It hits the adrenals. And then all the chemicals are released from the adrenals. That's why we call adrenalines. Our digestion switch off. All of our blood goes to the extremity of our arms and legs. Salivation glands stop working so we can run. But like most of the time, this is the energy of the past that is re-triggered. That's why some triggered are extremely hard to handle because it's revealed everything that we have experienced as a little boy or a little girl. So adrenaline is usually the place where we experience fear. Fear is excitement. Excitement is arousal, and arousal is a turn on. That's why people say, makeup sex are the best, because you are experiencing all the chemical from the reassurance that are now coupled with the chemical of fear. So a lot of fear are actually going to driven the best sex you had until you really become undivided. You break free from this prison and you can experience sexuality through the real power, the real love stage. But first we need to kind of remove this addiction that make us believe that the relationship needs to always be intense and extremely passionate.
Yes.
So we get addicted. And oftentimes people say, I'm addicted to the person, or I'm addicted to smoking, or I'm addicted to gambling and all that.
Correct.
You are not addicted to these things, so to speak. You are addicted to the emotion that you are trying to numb, but with the pleasure that you feel when you go towards sex or alcohol or gambling and all that. So you're trying to feel something so you don't feel something. And generally, it will be the loneliness, the sadness, the lack of love. This is what we are really addicted to. And this is why so many people sabotage their relationship, because the ego will want to recreate that sabotage. It will want to recreate the same childhood environment. And the best way to do that, for example, with someone who has an anxious attachment, is to bring someone who has an avoidant attachment. Because you will always bring a partner who either represent that one caregiver you have unfinished business with, or a culmination of both parents' character traits, so we can start to heal together. But like, the reason why an anxious person, for example, will attract an avoidant is to reveal the disconnection from themselves by virtue of the trick that the ego plays through the projection that the other person is the source of the connection we feel. Oh, I found the one. Finally, I'm complete now. It's just an illusion. Because in the moment of, especially during the honeymoon phase, we are going to feel what it feels like to experience love in a state of wholeness, in a state of without any fracture inside of us, any parts. And then that dissipates because we need to go through the power struggle phase to be able to have all this wound revealed so we can work together and heal that. But most people still don't see it that way. That's why
they don't see it that way.
Relationships are not made for love. Relationships are not for love or pleasure. Relationships are for healing, growth, and expansion. You are the essence of the love. So if we can start to look at relationship as this is for healing, growth, and expansion, not the person needs to heal me, but the person is here to reveal what I need to heal now within me. It's very important because we have plethora of content out there that kind of promote codependency. Correct. And we really need to make the difference between your partner can support you with your biggest trigger, but your healing is yours.
Yes. And it really, and that's the beauty of it, because when you start understanding this and you understand this in a different level than maybe we've ever understood it before, and we really dive into this, your partner is such a beautiful tool for you. If it's in a way that you can be able to start healing what needs to be healed. And you know what, I wanted to say this is so awesome. Seriously, that we're talking in this way, because I think people are listening right now and they're like, oh my goodness, no wonder I keep feeling this way. It's like, it's almost like, you know, what I hear from people is like, I feel like I'm in a hamster wheel. What is happening? Why do I keep going high and then low and high and low? Well, let's talk about this. So when someone, when someone is really starting to hear us today and starting to like, wow, never heard this before in my life. And this really sounds like me. Okay. Mm-hmm. What is something and how are things immediately that someone can start shifting a little bit and start getting curious about this, get more curious about what has been going on? How do you guide people, you know, right now when they're listening, how they can start getting curious and understanding you're not broken, you know, you're not broken, you guys, you're not broken. There's some conscious, there's our bodies, you know, creating this with hormones. And like you said, all the things. So what is something that people can start doing?
Yeah, so thank you for asking this. It's a really good question. So we can start to reverse engineer our way. So when we look at the whole chain of a pattern, there is an outcome in life that we don't like. Mm-hmm. Then there is behavior. So we can start to look at, okay, what behavior do I create that are actually not working for me? Behavior are going to be generated from feeling and emotions. Okay, so what emotions and feeling am I feeling that create the behavior? Which is where the whole world is focused at the moment. It's kind of, we need to validate all of our feelings and all our emotion all the time. And I kind of start to disagree with that, because especially for men, of course, we need to develop emotional intelligence and emotional literacy, which is understanding our emotion. But the men that stay too emotional, and I know what I'm talking about because I'm still extremely sensitive, and the emotion can get the best out of me sometimes because of what I've experienced in childhood.
Yep.
As men, we need to look at emotion, feeling, and it's like, okay, I need to feel that, and then I need to get on with things. So we look at emotion and feelings. Emotion and feelings are going to come from our thoughts. Okay, so what now are the limiting thoughts that create the emotions and feelings? Are, for example, the thoughts that like that person is going to leave me, that create the fear of loss, that generate an emotion of despair within me, that are going to cause me to text a lot or to cling to them, that create the outcome that people suffocate and I push them away. But so before thought, there is limiting belief. A lot of people focus on limiting belief. Before limiting belief, there is going to be the wounds and the root cause. But what I've discovered is between the wound and the root cause and the limiting belief, there is a whole world that not many talk about, which is the subconscious prisons, the emotional negative attachment, and the shadow needs. Your shadow needs, it's interesting because oftentimes in session, I ask people, what are your needs? And for example, I had a client that say, oh, my biggest need is connection. But in all relationship, there is constantly a lot of disconnection. There is conflict. There is an inability to communicate. If your need was connection, that would be met. What I want people to understand is that your need is not connection. Your real need is going to be opposite, which is separation.
Wow.
And so your need, your shadow needs, your ego need is always going to be superior than what you think at your need, because your need is a compensation from your shadow needs. Once you start to dissolve your shadow needs, then you can really have needs, which I call conscious desire.
Okay.
I have a conscious desire to be connected to you. But if I keep protesting, what am I doing? I'm not connecting with you. I'm pushing you away. I'm creating separation. So this is why we need to understand. We generally ask people, what are all your needs? And then we figure out all the shadow needs.
Okay.
So we can start to reverse engineer all of that. But the most important thing as well that I will start to, and again, I want people to understand that this work, if you want deep healing, you cannot do it on your own. You can keep even doing maybe some courses, some workshop, if they are really good, that can give you a lot of peace, a lot of pieces. But it will never replace the work on one-on-one with someone, especially that are trained. I don't know a lot, apart from my mentor and myself, I don't know a lot of people doing the shadow needs and ego prison and all that. The most important thing that I do in session is that we look at how you have become your own parents. But oftentimes people are like, yeah, okay, I act like my mom. I can be like my dad sometimes. But it's how have you become your own parents to yourself? You will, for example, you will criticize yourself the way your parents criticized you. And then you will bring a partner who criticizes you the way you criticize yourself. Or you will criticize them the way you've been criticized. So we start to look at all these subconscious patterns, not only the pattern at the behavior level. Everyone talk at the pattern at the behavior level. Yes, people pleasing, but there is such a subconscious shadow world around the people pleasing.
It's so much deeper. Yes.
Absolutely. So if you keep bringing the same type of partner, if you go through the same type of abuse, the same type of relationship, even if they are narcissists, the common denominator is always you. And I'm going to be clear here because I can see people already saying like, oh, you are victim shaming the people that are blamed, or no, the narcissists prey on their prey, basically. They prey on you. It's like, if you don't have a trauma that is based on a very devouring mother, a narcissistic person, a controlling person, or if you have been able to go through an individuation process, you wouldn't attract narcissists. There is a magnet in you, or made of powerlessness, subservience, submissive energy, people pleasing, 100%. That is going to attract the opposite. It's magnetism. And people say, no, that doesn't exist. I'm like, we are not going to argue with magnetism. It's everywhere. That's why there is polarities.
It's everywhere.
Masculine, feminine. I'm showing my phone, but let's imagine that my phone is like just a remote, and we need batteries. In the batteries, there is a plus and a minus. Feminine, masculine. We need a plus and a minus for the electricity to run around. If there is none, there is not magnetism. There is no charge. So if you keep attracting, and it's interesting because most people want to prove their victim energy, and they are going to go on a crusade and try to tell the world that every single one of their ex is a narcissist. And this is a journey that has no end. because
Oh my goodness. Thank you for saying that. This is a journey. Let's say it again.
yeah, and
Like
we
everyone's now, what is up with that? Everyone truly, genuinely, like they don't even want to look in, but they're like, he was a narcissist. She was a narcissist.
yeah, and
Why do people keep saying that?
because it can play the victim construct. And
Okay.
I need to add more nuances in there because again, people can be really triggered by it. And
Okay.
again, I invite people that if you're triggered by just someone talking, just look at your own trigger. Otherwise, you're going to keep placing your power outside of you, thinking that someone is making you feel. No one is making you feel. Someone is saying something and then you feel a certain way. That doesn't justify abuse, but that means that the more you are like, they make me feel a certain way, you lose your power, you're going to remain the victim of your circumstances.
Yes.
Like there is someone that I've said one day that I heard it say like, people would rather be right than be free. They would rather be right about their construct than to be free of their construct that they think the other people is responsible for. So like you have a blueprint that we select those people. And one thing I've seen is that people who have been the victim of real narcissism, they don't go on Instagram constantly trying to prove that someone has NPD out there. Correct. The people that have been really hurt by narcissism, they have a shattered sense of self. They cannot set boundaries. Their bodies is crushed. They are literally shrinking. It looks like they are shrinking. The color of their skin is faded. The hair goes thin. They don't know who they are anymore. So they can't even go and start to work like my ex was a narcissist and all that. It's the perfect excuse to remain the victim. And so you are going to re-empower yourself when you understand and start to dissolve the blueprint in you that are attracting someone that abuse you. Because if you keep playing the victim or being like, it's other people out there that are responsible for my suffering, you are becoming the abuser of your own victim anyway. So if you become the abuser of your own victim.
Powerful. Wait, I want you to wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. That was very powerful. Can you actually say that again?
Yeah, absolutely. If you keep remaining the victim of your circumstances and you keep blaming people outside that are going to keep going until you realize your blueprint to dissolve, you become the abuser of your own victim. Wow. And the ego is going to be like, I don't want to see that. I'm going to deny that, and I'm going to make everyone else outside the abuser. Instead of looking
one of the
at
things that you Oh, sorry about that.
No, all good. Instead of looking at, again, what is the constraint within me that keep attracting people that I don't want? Because your ego wants that. It wants to recreate the chaos. It wants to recreate the conflict. It's not your enemy. It's just a broken record. And it's a broken record that wants to remain a broken record until you can heal and it become the golden record. And the golden record, now you can start to attract differently. Imagine being in a room and having a broken record going, people are going to leave. It's hard for the ears.
Yeah, it's hard,
If it's become a golden record or someone that have received the Grammys or I don't know, in the music industry, people are going to want to listen to that. So you're going to attract different type of people if you move from a broken record to a golden record, or what we call from your shadow to the golden shadow. The golden shadow is when you've healed, your shadow becomes the golden shadow, and they become the golden shadow white through the lessons that you needed to learn.
Yes. And you know what I love also that you said? Oh, I loved all that. One thing that I thought was so powerful too is when you said you're giving your power away.
Yeah.
And it's so important when we are able to really, that's, you know what, seriously, why do you think I'm having, I created a podcast like this? I genuinely created a podcast because I wanted people to understand there's so many layers here, right?
Yeah.
But if we've been doing things, like I said earlier, if we've been doing things for, a certain amount of time and we're not getting the results that we want, we're not getting the relationships that we want, there are things, and there's, what I call it like a deeper dive. And I totally believe what you said. This type of work, you guys, honestly, I'm just saying this to you, it's really spot on what he said. You can't do it on your own. It actually takes a professional to be able to work through this with you, to ask you questions that you're not even going to be able to ask yourself anyway, to give you, certain tools and a perspective that you're not going to just know, just by reading a book. I'm serious. You're not going to know by reading a book, but it can actually catapult you and get you to where you need to go. And this is another thing I want to say this, and you know this to be true too. When it comes to discovery, when it comes to healing, it is not just a straight line. No, it is something that we as human beings, and that's the beauty of it, as human beings that we get to, as we evolve, as we mature, that we get to start discovering about ourselves. And just because you feel that you are in a certain way, that doesn't mean that that's how you have to stay. Well, did I just rhyme? But seriously, right? And so I love that you talked about the importance of getting this clarity, getting this understanding. And I think that's why, when we talk about the attachment styles, and that is a way for us to really dive deeper and understand where this is all coming from and why we've been doing things a certain way. But I love how you said also, but it also is a tool that we can use not to stay that way, but to shift. How often then? So can you tell the listeners that, that this is something that they actually can shift if they do the work? And let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like everything can be shifted. Of course, you're going to have wounds and prison that are more harder to deal with than others. But this is the whole point of having a professional to guide you through that, but also a professional that knows many modalities. My intention when I started to be a coach, and has been like that for now 6 years, 6 years, even before discovering the whole wounded ego work, which is my specialty now, my intention was always, please life, bring me the most powerful, efficient modality so I can help others with it. And so this is why I have so many modalities, and I started to take the one that was working the most. So of course, everyone is different and are going to have different needs. But what I realized is, for example, inner child work is limited if you don't dissolve the fortress of the subconscious that act like a protection to your authentic self. So doing the inner child work, for example, without the wounded ego work, it's like being in a prison and your inner child is in prison and you open the door once in a while, you go and give them a hug, but they are still in prison. Rather than dissolving the bar of the prison. So now, every time you go and try to nurture that part of you, now they can start to be reintegrated in you, because the ego needs to see itself to become part of the self. It's a reintegration process. But in order to do that, we also have part of us that we need to break. That's why I understand it's not only I need to love this part, I need to accept that part. There is part that needs to dissolve. Correct. Of course, through the acceptance, but there is this part that wants to sabotage. And it's not necessarily the inner child. The inner child is frozen in time in this, but there is this part in your ego that wants to sabotage. So to answer your question, it's absolutely possible, but we need to look at the entire pattern and have an approach for each phase of the pattern. What can you do at the behavior level? What can you do at the emotional feeling level? What can you do at the thought level, the limiting belief level, the shadow needs, emotional negative attachment, and the prison level, the wound and root cause level? Because what happens when we can link everything together, it's like the game Tetris. You have all this little cube coming and then it starts to dissolve.
Yeah.
So the more we can do that as well, the ego goes into a rage, and someone needs to know that. Someone needs to be able to drive their client and be like, oh, right now I'm resisting, it's coming back. I'm like, yeah, because your ego is starting. The ego is the one that is afraid to lose. So for example, if we have a fear of loss and an anxious attachment, you are not really afraid to lose a person. Your ego is afraid to lose the identity attached to the anxious attachment that you want to perpetuate, because the ego is all about survival. Wow. So the ego itself is afraid
Yes.
to lose its identity based on fear, because it doesn't know what real love is, and it thinks fear is love and love is
And they
fear.
think the fear is love. You know
So
what, though? When you were talking right now,
yeah,
honestly, how you kind of broke it down and you said it's not just getting into one area. It's how all areas really play a part together, right? Because
yeah,
you can kind of like work on this, and then like you said, but this is going to be like, hey, but when as you were talking, can I just tell you what was happening for
go
me?
for it.
It felt, I actually want to cry. It felt so liberating. I was like, wow, we can finally are able to understand where this is all coming from.
Yeah,
And I really believe this with all my heart. When you get to learn something different, that different, something that you didn't even know before, like a lot of people really truly believe, they truly believe this with all their heart, that they're broken, something's really wrong with them. They don't understand this because this is not something until Miss Charlene created this podcast. But this is not something that, right? Like, seriously, that we put energy into, when it comes to all these levels. But look how liberating and how important it is, because it can actually free somebody. It can free you.
absolutely.
And absolutely. I wish that, I mean, I know today, and I'm not, I don't like having time. I always like, oh, because it just seems like every time this, I'm getting going, but it's okay. The times like you've already been on, okay, whatever. But what I'm saying to you is, you guys, wow, this to me, and I know that, for some of you who are listening to this for the very first time, you're like, what is going on? That is some deep stuff. No, let me just say something. Yeah, you could say it's deep stuff, but it's so healing. It's
Yeah,
it's it's something that is so beautiful. And this is what I believe. I believe that people absolutely should go work with someone if this is truly genuinely resonating with them. Work with someone like you, Quentin, honestly, that can help them in a way that can, like you said, it's not just tackling one area. It's
yeah,
really tackling all the different areas so you can actually shift that nervous system in a way that it doesn't that the way that you've been doing things doesn't feel your normal anymore. You can change it to where something else is something that you need in your body.
yes.
Oh my goodness, I want to give you a big hug. I want to
Virtual
give you
hug
a
right
big
now.
virtual hug. Seriously, when you are working with a client
Mhm.
and for the very first time in their life that they get to see something, like I said, to me, it's so liberating. What shift do you just see in them? Is it kind of what I'm saying, or is it just they like, wow, I had no idea? What
Yeah.
happens?
So it really depends on where people are at. So oftentimes,
Okay.
if people haven't done any work,
Yeah.
what they have is like almost an out of the world experience, because they were not aware of what they were not aware. And what I
Yes.
do is like, this is why oftentimes I work with people in short amount of time, like 3, 6,
Okay.
or 9 sessions, because what I wanted to also to help people with is like, you don't need to spend a lifetime in therapy to be able to have significant change. So what we
I
do
love that.
generally in the first session is that we are going to link, generally I send a questionnaire and then I look at that and I start to see all the blind spots. And so the people that never done any work, it's like I had people, and I should start to put that on Instagram with, of course, the agreement of my old clients. I had people that start trembling and shaking. I had a guy
Yes.
that literally was constantly touching his hands like that when I opened a deepest prison for him. And what we realized is like he was acting like a little boy with his finger when he didn't know what to do, when his mom would beat him on the back with a bamboo, I think, a bamboo stick or something like that. a prison was created from that it was deeply unsafe and the world is a dangerous place. And so some people have different experience. They can cry, but what I love to see, we have a direct experience. So now people are not crying at the behavior level. They are crying at the catharsis level. Generally, there is an opening in their body. The prison are in different organs as well. There is prison that are in your head. One prison is in your heart. One is in your throat. A couple in the lungs. One is in your liver. So when they open, they start to see something like opening and an energy start to be released from bottom to top. It goes at the top of their head, start to have a headache, and then it goes out. So that's when we start to bring all the pieces of the puzzle for the entire pattern. So that's what happened. Then we look at how resistant their ego is. And so this is where we are going to start to apply strategy so they can keep seeing the program in action, because now they cannot not see it anymore. It comes to their awareness. We also understand that the ego can go unconscious for a couple months and then come back to you to try to see if it can reinforce itself or survive itself again. It's a very insidious world. It's like for people to understand, I don't know if a lot of people have seen Stranger Things on Netflix.
Okay, so, I know that show. Yeah.
Yes. So Stranger Things, there is the real world and the upside down world. The upside down world is really dark. There is like red lightning and there is all the monsters. And then you have the real world. The ego is a bit like that. It's an upside down world because it is the opposite. And generally it will attract the opposite of what you want because the opposite is what it wants.
Right.
But so for some people, sometimes they have done a lot of work, but they're still missing that missing piece that they couldn't see. And generally it's an emotional negative attachment or a shadow need that was really stubborn that is still in a blind spot. For some people, then I work longer when there is a very high level of codependency, of narcissistic abuse. And I say people who were children abused by people with NPD disorder, not just narcissistic trait, NPD disorder. And that is going to help the person rebuild an entire sense of self because they don't really know who they are. The ego know what they are not, which is this shrink being that have been destroyed again and again. And now the authentic self wants to emerge, but it can only emerge if we break the fortress. And so instead of attracting narcissists that keep them in the fortress, now we need to open the fortress and dissolve the fortress of the subconscious. So it's really going to depend. And then once that is start to be done really well, then we can move into inner child work and stuff like that, because it's way more powerful. It's very hard to access an inner child. You can, but then there's the fortress around.
But you have to, if you really are wanting to make truly the whole shift, you have to go to this level first before we get into the inner child. Oh, that makes so much sense.
And so for people that listen to us, generally, on average, I would say that some people can have 5 to 6 prisons.
Okay. I
had more than 30. So that's probably why it was so hard to hear, but why I'm doing this job, because I had to, you can take every or most mental, I don't like to say mental illnesses. I prefer to say mental imbalance.
Okay.
You can say like for, I don't know, perfectionism or fear of loss or anxiety or depression of people pleasing.
Yeah.
You can take most of them. I had most of them. Though oftentimes I'm working on some things and I would attract a client that has to work on the same thing I'm working on, that I can help them now because I've gone through that. But for me, oftentimes I'm still healing while I can help people dissolving what I'm still healing, because I had to go through so much to be able to do this job. So for people that are listening, I'm recovering with big codependency. And so I'm still recovering from that. I'm not ashamed to share that. But it's interesting to see sometimes clients where I apply what I know, they can break free from something I'm still working on. And I'm okay with that. Because I know that I had so many layers and layers that some are still coming from me, of course, in a relationship. No surprise there.
Yeah, no surprise there.
But it's absolutely possible for people
okay.
to shift, yeah.
But you know what's so cool? Honestly, you know what's so cool is that if you just explained how, how you grew up and how that really genuinely played such a big role in, like you said, you had at least 30 of them. Like, that's a lot, right? And for you to take that and to move forward and do what you're doing now, you are awesome.
Thank you.
And you are meant to do this. And I'm not saying, I'm just gonna say something right now. I'm sorry, all of us, you guys, I get it. Like, there's so many of us have gone through really tough, hard childhoods. Oh, and it really absolutely played a role, in how we felt and our insecurities and all the things. I mean, it's huge, you guys. But I am talking to you today, Quentin.
Yeah.
And how you are now helping people and how you took this and you took it in a way to empower yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Not only like, you're like, I'm gonna go into this field, yes, for me, but also if I can help someone that, can relate to what I've gone through, then I can understand that you're like, I've done my job.
Yeah.
And to you, I don't have a hat on, but my hat goes down to, like, seriously, to you, because I think this conversation is really going to touch a lot of people. I think that you gave people so much hope. And
Hope so.
I appreciate you for that, honestly. I appreciate this conversation because if someone's listening to this, they can understand, hey, there's reasons why you feel the way you do. And there's reasons why, you probably maybe have had a harder time when it comes to the matters of the heart, all of that. But there's people like Quentin, like, seriously, that you can actually work with, that not only have studied this to a level that I can't even explain, what he studied this, but like he said earlier, he can speak to it based on his own experience. And that, to me, my friend, is the key. It is so powerful. How do we get in your world? How can we work with you? How can we find you? Seriously.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for saying all of that. I really appreciate, and I appreciate your work and giving opportunities for professionals like me to be able to get our voice out there and to help a lot of people. So thank you so much for doing that and for your words. I really appreciate you. Most of my work is on Instagram. So
Okay.
Quentin.j.decamp. For the people that don't know that, then I have my website, so where people can find how I work. So it's www.quentindecamp.com. I have that book that we talked about at the beginning that they can find on most Amazon platform, I guess. Other than that, yeah.
And the book is called, you guys, You Have Never Been in a Relationship.
Yes, correct. And so it's one page, one concept. That book, it's a very small book, but I wanted for some people to have an entry point to, even if they cannot work with me because I'm quite high ticket, they can have that. And I'm in the process of registering a lot of workshop, PDF, and mini course at the moment. So everyone can have something they can look into. And that has been very my focus for this year. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, that's fantastic. How are you? How is your romantic life right now?
Yes.
Are you currently dating? Are you single? Are you married? What's going on with you?
So I've been in a relationship for 9 months now. I had a very rough patch with relationship before, And doing this work, we are both people actively working on ourselves, having a few things revealed, but we're both working on ourselves at the moment and helping each other. And it
That's
has
awesome.
been a very good journey, of course, ups and downs, conflict here and there. But I'm confident that, we were placed on each other's path to be able to create something together. And in the process of that, probably a podcast, but not only me with her, because what I love is that I have all the knowledge and the thing I talk about, and she has her own experience with her own healing. And I think the adequation of that will be really helpful for people out there that want their relationship to work. So this is where we're at the moment.
Oh, I love it. Why you guys come back to the podcast.
Yeah.
Let's have a conversation. Oh, that's
Absolutely.
amazing. Oh, I would love that. I would love to continue this conversation. And like you said, with her in a different perspective on what she's done too. Oh, I like it. Oh, I love that. Definitely. You reach out to me when you guys are ready for that. I would definitely
Absolutely.
have you back on. And I know, and thank you. I know we got to get off, but before we end this episode today, is there anything else that you want to share that maybe we didn't talk about real quick?
I think, we covered a lot. I think that, it's to realize that it's important we will always have two types of people: the people that go through a continuous process of external compensation, or you can go into an internal journey of internal evolution. So internal evolution is going to be dissolving the old programs within you so you can upgrade the software and really create the life that you want and attract a partner that is not only going to be perfect, but you can work with or continue to work with.
I love that.
I would say also, otherwise, the world is a constant world of compensation. And the more unmet need we have, the more we are going to use, high standards as a cover. But so oftentimes we can have values, preferences, and all like that. But I will leave people with this: the people that consider having very big or high standards, are your high standards come from your healing or from woundings and unmet needs? Because if you have high standards that are coming from wounding and unmet needs, you are always going to attract people that are not going to meet your high standards, because the only expectation you have is that no one can meet your expectation. And that is going to prevent a lot of relationships that could work together to not work. So we work on ourselves not only for ourselves and for our own healing, but for also the collective, to upgrade our level of relationship and being able to have way more people connected.
Oh, I love that. You guys, honestly, that was beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. And you guys, that's I get all those warm and fuzzies right now. when we get to work on ourselves, that's so healing. Like I said earlier, it's actually so liberating. It's liberating. And I want people to understand that. You know what I tell people often? I'm like, listen, gift yourself that. Go work with someone. And again, work with Quentin, honestly. Gift yourself that, because on the other side, it's like, oh, I didn't know. Oh my goodness. It's like, you get back to having some fun again. Honestly.
Absolutely.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you so
much. Thank you so much. Until next time, cheers to great love. Let's talk about the tip of the week. In honor of today's guest, Quentin, which is understanding your attachment style so it stops running your relationship. A lot of women think that they have bad luck in love, or they're just picking the wrong men over and over again. But what's actually happening is this: your attachment style is quietly guiding how you show up in connection. If you're anxiously attached, you may feel like you're too much, always trying to prove your worth, chasing closeness. If you're avoidantly attached, you might struggle to feel safe being vulnerable, so you push love away, even if you crave it. If you're secure, you can show up with both strengths and softness, and that's what we all have the capacity to develop. So, your patterns in love are not your personality, they're your programming. And when you understand your attachment style, you begin to shift your story. Because love doesn't have to feel like survival, it can feel safe, steady, and deeply fulfilling. And as I mentioned on this episode, gift yourself working with someone because that will guide you through this process. Do that for yourself. That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. If you're loving this podcast and these incredible conversations, please hit the subscribe button and leave a 5-star review. Don't miss an episode because each week I'll be bringing on guests and experts who will share their knowledge about love, dating, and relationships so you can apply it into your own life. I'll see you next week. And until then, cheers to great love.